Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new episode of Rethink Life. We are here and let's get started. So just to start off, we're sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, established in 1959 as the Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. Our website's at www.scientificmetaphysics.org. As we've been doing over this last several episodes, we're referencing Margaret Laird's book called Government is Self-Government. And you can get that at the site that I've just said. So that's what we're referencing. And the episode tonight is When the Chips Are Down, Then What? That's what we're going to be exploring. When things don't go the way you thought, things aren't looking like they're to plan, things aren't, or something surprising happens and it doesn't look good, or we judge it to be, well, why do things have to be so hard? It's when you say, oh, why me, Lord? That kind of stuff. Why does it always happen to me? And so we want to look at that. When the chips are down, what's the science view? How do you live that super powerfully? So that's what we're going to be exploring today. Welcome, Betty.
Hello, welcome.
All right. So we have a few things to kick us off. And that is, as thinking or conscious identity, the divinity of humanity is fulfilled as true humanhood. This means that man is the one divine event of self-fulfilling perfection or infinity.
Need to read that again.
This means that man is the one divine event of self-fulfilling perfection or infinity.
Yeah, and if you think of yourself as man, think of yourself as the one divine event. That's a big order.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Self-fulfilling perfection.
Say what again?
Self-fulfilling perfection.
Yep. So thoughts are things.
Yep.
Science doesn't argue with nor endeavor to change what's seen, heard, and felt. So we aren't out there fussing with the picture. We're not out there trying to rearrange the furniture of our life, trying to get this to do that and blah, blah, blah. We will take the steps we take humanly, but it's never as an order to. It's more like an of course.
Yeah, if you approach it as an in order to, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Or if it does work, it might not work too. You know what I'm saying? Like if you rely on the picture, that's where you get into trouble.
Sometimes bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the physicists of today speak of the metaphysics of physics and of the whole subjective universe of matter and energy, atoms and stars, as constructs of consciousness.
Yep.
So that sets up the conversation. Anything more you want to add, Betty?
Yeah, I just want to put in the unwelcome news, I'm sure, but living scientific metaphysics is not easy. It's not something you can just once in a while plug into. You either way of life includes the facts of being or it doesn't. And if it does, it's almost never assured that it's going to go the way you would like it to go. It's a case of self-discipline enough that when it doesn't go your way, you are still able to say, wait a minute, everything going on in my life has value. So I need to look for the value, whether I like it or not. And when I do that, incredible things happen with my life.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to the whole story about dogs. You could say, just be a dog. And here's what I mean by that. Do you know that dogs go from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm? I mean, let's think about it. So your dog comes up and they want you to throw the ball. So they bring you the ball and they're like, throw me the ball, throw the ball. And then you go, I don't want to throw the ball. And they go, and they drop the ball and they go away and they lie down, whatever. And then a few minutes later, they grab the ball and they come back over and it's like, you ready now? Ready now? And then you say, no, I'm not ready now. And they drop the ball and they go lie down. And then pretty soon they come back over and are you ready now? How about now? And so the difference between dogs and humans is that we have a huge loss of enthusiasm. In fact, after about the first or second rejection, we'll just stop altogether. Because you know what? It's like, that'll never happen. So that's why I say, be a dog, channel the dog self. So that's my story about that. All right. So let's dive in here and start looking at our quotes. So on Government is Self-Government on page 35, Margaret Laird wrote, human living is difficult because of the demand of truth to be consciously divine under all circumstances.
Yep. Being consciously divine. You know, the only part of that has any real challenge to it is consciously. We live and move and have being divinely all the time. If the divinity were not present, the humanity would not show up. So it's already put together. But consciously living that fact takes all your attention. So the attention it takes is not an intellectual inquiry. And that's what it looks like a lot to people who kind of read the surface of scientific metaphysics, like it isn't easy stuff. But consciously, all that means is wake up, pay attention. That's what it takes to be conscious. That's all. Just wake up, pay attention.
Yeah.
No hard thing to do. Nothing needs to be, you don't have to reinvent the wheel or any of that stuff. You just have to be awake, alert, paying attention. If all is infinite mind, that's it. It's all God being. It's all mind functioning. It's all principle, reasoning, establishing itself. It's the authority of truth functioning. It's already in place. It's already functioning. It's already doing its thing. And it always has. Your participation in it is a matter of being conscious, consciously aware. That's the secret right there.
Right. Very good.
Yeah.
And all right. I think
I could add one more thing to that. The difficulty arises if you're not being consciously aware, that then you find yourself having some kind of a difficulty, some kind of a discomfort, some kind of an unreasonable challenge to handle. Right. Because if I'm not consciously aware, I'm living in fiction. And fiction doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Most of the time it doesn't. It's up and down and up and down and up and down. But scientific metaphysics is already established. And being consciously aware is the hardest thing I do.
Right. Sandy Jackson asks, could you say deliberate and intentional?
Well, it sounds a little bit like you're getting the human mind involved in doing something. It's a wake-up call is like, oh, it's not like, let me think now. How am I going to wake up and be consciously aware? There's a difference. You get that, Sandy? I think she does get it.
All right. So if we go on and we look at Science and Health on page 173 and 174, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, if God is mind and fills all space, is everywhere, mind is nowhere.
Matter.
Then matter is nowhere. Sorry, I'll try this over. If God is mind and fills all space everywhere, matter is nowhere. And sin is obsolete.
Yeah, tell us what sin is.
Tell us what sin is? Believing the fiction? A belief in two. Well, yeah, believing the fiction. Knowing that there's something out there that could impact you.
That there's more than one thing going on.
Yeah.
That's the only sin there is.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. So let us open our affections to the principle that moves all in harmony, from the falling of a sparrow to the rolling of a world.
Yeah.
So say more about that.
Well, when she talks, Mrs. Eddy wrote in kind of flowery language, you might say, let us open our affections to the principle that moves all in harmony. That's just saying, wake up, be alert, consciously aware. And my experience will be one of harmony. Falling of sparrow. I couldn't find that phrase, but I like it. From the falling of a sparrow to the rolling of a world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all conscious awareness. That's the only requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in Mind is the Athlete on page 76, you said it this way: if I see limits where there is infinite consciousness, I'm going to believe I'm limited and my experience will be one of limitation.
Yes, because we make the world we walk through as we go. If I'm seeing myself limited, guess what I'm going to see evident in my experience? Limitation. Because as I be, so be's my world. Not that it is less divine than it is right this minute. But it's perfect and whole and complete. And if I don't live it that way, I get to live it my way.
Right.
Limited and troublesome and uncomfortable and all that stuff.
Right.
So it's up to me. As I be, so be's my world. Each one is in charge.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so as we all reflect on whatever it is that's confronting us, how are we seeing limits or making limits? And if we see and we can acknowledge those limits or acknowledge our belief in two, we can let that alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So moving right on. And if this conversation is making a difference to you, we'd love if you heart or thumbs up, any of that. And again, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and type them in your comment box and we'll bring them up.
And I know some of these ideas are confusing. Ask questions. Everyone's wanting to hear your questions. And that's what will make it clear for you.
Right.
So
in Government is Self-Government on page 36, Margaret Laird wrote, when sickness confronts me, I don't say I'm sick, but I know it's unreal. If I'm sick, period. If the sickness exists, it has meaning or purpose, or it does not exist.
Yeah.
So there's no denying. There's no error in that sense of it.
Yeah.
There's only value.
Yeah.
Anything else on that?
Yep. Perception is reception. It's up to you. Conscious awareness is up to you. Being yourself. The thing is, Mrs. Eddy says in the very beginning of Science and Health that the human mind is not a factor. Well, whenever facts are stated or recognized or acknowledged, it is not the human mind functioning. The human mind would tell you what you see, feel, hear, taste, touch. This is all there is, folks. That's what it would say. And you look around and say, yeah, I got it. There it is.
Yeah.
So if you're stating facts of being, the discernment of the spiritual fact of whatever's confronting you, it is divine mind speaking. It's not the human mind trying to put a restriction in place.
Right.
So never be afraid to state the facts, even if it doesn't look that way in your picture. The facts are the facts, like all is infinite mind, however I see it.
Right.
But the acknowledgement of that one principle functioning takes me out of the realm of the unpredictable, uncertain, incomplete, insufficient, limited view of everyday living that I have going on called Betty and her human stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sandy Jackson says, what we have been conditioned to call a problem is a catalyst which love provides for accelerating the awakening to our present divineness from we are the world we walk through.
Yep.
And Christian Science Re-Explored.
Thanks, Sandy. That's a good one.
Yeah. Now I have a question, and that is talk to me about how does willingness factor into all this?
Willingness is the capacity that you have to be yourself instead of what you look like.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody says, relax, all is well, and you say, how can I relax? For heaven's sakes, look what's going on.
Right.
You know, there's no willingness to listen for what's actually present.
Yeah.
There is a conviction that the way it looks and my difficulty is real, and you better believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And guess how I live it? When that's where I'm coming from, it is real. It's my experience, and I live it with misery and justify it every step of the way.
Yeah.
It's true.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying is it's when sickness confronts me, I don't say I'm sick, but I know it's not real. If you're sick, you're sick.
Yeah.
And there's a willingness to allow the picture to be the way the picture is.
If there is a willingness to allow the picture to be the way it is, that means leave it alone, not fuss with it. Miracles occur.
Right. And
Because
it doesn't mean you don't, right. And it doesn't mean you don't take the steps that are there to take that unfold right there, human footsteps.
Yeah, you know, it's simple stuff we're talking about here. You know, if I'm hungry, it's easy to get a sandwich or a bowl of cereal or something to eat. I just open the refrigerator or go in a restaurant or whatever, buy an apple in the grocery store. But I go eat. Yeah. I don't sit around and say I shouldn't eat any food. All is well.
Right.
I don't make it complicated. I'm just willing just to have something to eat if I'm hungry. And there it is. Well, I'm willing to be whole and perfect and complete, divine love present. There it is.
Yeah, very good. Okay. In Mind as the Athlete, you say it this way on page 76. Everything exists in the act of perceiving. The human need and the occasion to self-discover, to discern the facts of being, is the reason we have all the human footsteps showing up in and as daily living.
Yep.
Okay. And in Science and Health, I have them backwards. It's interesting. I was kind of wondering, like, where'd it go? In Science and Health on page 255, Mary Baker Eddy says it this way: the human form or physical fitness cannot be made the basis of any true idea of the infinite Godhead.
Yeah, the fiction doesn't provide you with the facts, and yet it does because it makes you so miserable. You get busy and discover the facts for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With science as your guide, with science as your...
If you're studying science, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then what was the statement that Margaret used to make? Suffering or science? Isn't there a story about that? Where she's like, well, let's be a scientist after all.
Well, she said you may drag one foot after the other for the rest of your life, but let's be a scientist. Yeah. And what she's saying is leave that dragging foot alone, just let it drag, because the minute you live your science, something's going to occur that takes care of that.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
We call it healing, but really what it is the disappearance of reliance on the way it looks and a willingness to have it be one thing present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whole, perfect, complete, joyous, and free. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the comments, and we'd be happy to take those up. On Government as Self-Government, now on page 37, Mrs. Laird wrote, the I, living its divinity self-consciously as thought, is able to read the signs of the times, and recognize that each individuation of mind is mind fulfilling its perfection, wholeness, fulfillment, allness.
Yep.
So when she's talking about each individuation of mind, what is she referring to?
You and me.
Okay. So you
Individual
and me, we recognize that you and me, any of us, each of us,
being. Yep.
is mind fulfilling its perfection, wholeness, fullness, allness.
Yep.
No
And
matter
you
the
either see
way it
that,
looks.
or you see a struggling two-legged animal running around frantically trying to keep it all together.
Right. No matter the way it looks.
Yep.
Okay. And let's see, I'm going to do this in Science and Health on page 253. Mary Baker Eddy wrote, "The divine demand, be ye therefore perfect, is scientific, and the human footsteps leading to perfection are indispensable."
Yes, what comes up for you to do, you do it.
Yeah.
But don't expect that evidence to solve the problem. What solves the problem is your willingness to have the divine take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
No
doesn't
fuss.
matter. You know, like if I eat a peanut butter sandwich, that's not going to save my life. But the willingness to just shut up the hunger pangs so I can get on with being does wonders. I could
Yeah.
go from a peanut butter sandwich to a steak dinner,
Right.
and it would be the same. There's just
Yeah.
one thing going on. All is well, whole, complete, joyous, fulfilled, satisfied right now. How am I seeing it? We'll see. Just
Right.
look
Well,
around.
look around is what I would say. Look around. What's happening in your world? And
Yep.
it's all perfection functioning, coming to view in the only way we can see it, in the only way that I can see it.
Yep.
It has to look this way for whatever discovery is there for me to have.
Yeah. And for each one, the occurrence is slightly different because it occurs in a language that you individually perceive. What I perceive is very different from what you perceive.
Right.
So it will handle my situation in a language I understand.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it'd be a total waste of time.
Right.
And your language is your language. So
Yeah.
you're never a copycat. Doesn't help you to look over there and see what I'm doing. It's got nothing to do with you. You have
Right.
to live your own. Each one is totally self-responsible.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And in Mind is the Athlete on page 77, you wrote, "Who you are being as being, man, the God idea, reflective God idea in action, is the cause and condition of your language world every instant."
Yeah, that's a big sentence.
Right. So let's
But
break
it's
it down.
exactly the way it's exactly the way it is. See, who you're being that moment, just one moment at a time, but who you're being man, the reflective God idea. And this is the cause and the condition of everything occurring in your human living. Because the human living is the language you understand that all is well.
Mhm.
So it shapes up and says, yep, all is well. But if I think that something in my human living is going to provide me with that satisfaction, I've just shot myself in the foot because my language stuff can't do any of that. It doesn't provide me with anything. It's just the language I understand that all is well,
Mhm.
which it is.
Right.
So it's going to show up in my world, all is well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when the chips are down, then what?
When the chips are down, you leave that view alone and you look at the facts of being and allow that to take first place. And you'll be
Okay.
amazed.
All right. So that's what there is to do between this week and next week. Try it out. Whatever
And let
comes
me
up,
hear from you.
try it out. And if you have any questions, yeah, just let's hear them. We'll be here again next week to go on to a new topic, although we're talking about the same thing over and over, just different ways of looking at it, different different peels of the onion.
Yeah,
or
and
layers of the onion.
about it from the standpoint of government is self-government.
Right.
I govern myself intelligently with the facts of being. My human living shapes up.
Yes. Now, Sandy Jackson has said, being is spirit. This fact of you yourself, is ever informing you of the joy, satisfaction, order, wholeness, and harmony that you're experiencing. Being is spirit. This fact of you yourself, is ever informing you of the joy. I think it's just said twice, of the joy, satisfaction, order, wholeness, and harmony that you are experiencing.
Yeah, and in that sentence, Sandy, you want to take a look at the word you, because it sounds as if you're talking about Sandy. And what you're talking about is the being that has Sandy show up. That's the being where the harmony, the joy, and the fulfillment occurs.
Right. And she's quoting a Laird letter from 1954.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, we will be here next week. Thank you all. And really tackle this week. Look and see and be willing. Identify the facts and see how that shifts your perception. See how that may shift your reality. And it's all self-discovering. So we shall see you next week and Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And until then, let's all be scientists after all.